Oh, looks like we are live. All right, all right. Looks like we're live on all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 platforms. Whoop, whoop. So excited to be here with y'all today. Got my favorite little guy here. He's going to give y'all a little greeting. He wants to say hi to the audience today. You have something you want to say, or did you just want to wave?
Okay, now look. If y'all like me, y'all gonna like at the end. Because if I ain't asleep by the end of this class, then you getting a reward. You gotta see me.
I like to think the class is their reward for being here, but okay, you are definitely the cherry on top. You are the cutie here, but you know what? Pretty soon you're going to be too grown to be the cutie. You with your floppy hair. All right, go lay down. Tell everybody goodbye.
Bye, guys.
All right.
Make sure to sit through
the class. Okay, everybody. All right, it's JJ Conway. I want to welcome you today, whether you're listening to us live, watching us live, listening to us as part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast. Tonight is one of my favorite nights, and I'm excited that you are here. Today is our fireside chat, which means I'm going to answer your money questions with what I like to think is style and grace. Today we have some doozies, all right? And hopefully I'll be able to not spend the whole podcast time on just one question, but if I do, you know it was needed. All right, so let me tell you what we're going to talk about today, and then we're going to move right into our Q&A today. Now, before I begin, if you have Q&A or you have a question that you'd like me to answer while we're recording live, go ahead and drop it in the chat. If you've dropped it anonymously, I've already captured it. And if you drop it again tonight, I will go ahead and queue that up for next. Let me say that again, not skew, queue. I will go ahead and queue that up for next time. And if you want to, our new Ladies of Wealth website, ladiesofwealth.com, has a voicemail button. You can leave me an anonymous voicemail with your question. I would love to start playing questions because, as many of you know, my ultimate goal has always been to have a radio show. I had a radio show back in college when I was a cadet at the Air Force Academy. And while that was music, I really did love radio. And I thought radio was dead, but now I see that I live in rural Texas and radio is still alive and kicking in rural Texas and other rural parts of our country. So I still have hopes that I'll be able to do a call-in show, call-in podcast, call-in radio, and you can help me accomplish that dream by going to ladiesofwealth.com and asking your question with a voicemail, or you can just type one in. All right, so today what we're going to talk about, I've got 4 things we're going to talk about tonight. The first one we're going to talk about, should I give my live-in boyfriend some of the equity from selling my house? We're also going to talk about how can I get an apartment with bad credit? We're going to talk about a credit repair scam you got to run away from. And we're also going to give a little fun moment on the top 10 wealth building strategies you can implement for under $5. Now, even as I say that, I find it interesting. Actually, let's go ahead and start there. Why don't we go ahead and start there? That'll be fun. All right. I find it interesting that that none of those strategies are create a spend plan. Like, creating a spend plan is free. Now, it's painful if it's free. You can make it a lot easier. Oh, I don't think it's too painful if it's free, but I'm a nerd like that, right? I also am a spender, so I don't know what we call that. You know, some teachers, like when I do Financial Peace University, they talk about you have the nerd who's always into the dollars and cents and the spreadsheets, and then you have the free spirit who spends everything. I got this weird yin yang going on that I'm both the nerd and the spender. So there you go. I don't know. I guess it's why the Lord has me teach this stuff, so I can keep my own self in line. All right. But I'm going to give you the top 10 things that were on this list of ways that you can improve your long-term wealth with just for $5. Okay. And like I said, like I said earlier, I'm surprised that spend plan isn't on the list. That's what I would put at the top of the list, but it's not on the list. So drum roll. Number 10, I love this one. Number 10 is the Scrub Daddy. Now, if you have ever cleaned a house after moving in or moving out, or when tenants moved in and moved out, you know very well that houses can get grimy, and even just your normal day in and day out can get grimy. And so, I am a stay-at-home mom. I tend to do the bulk of the cleaning for my household, but like I routinely tell my son, I am not your maid. I should not have to clean up the messes you know you're making. There's normal grime that builds up in the household, and I love that the Scrub Daddy made the list. Now, how many of you are military brats, military spouses, military veterans, my age or older, and you remember whatever the Scrub Daddy was before it became the Scrub Daddy, right? Everybody remember that yellow sponge that looks like what the Scrub Daddy looks like now? And every time you moved to a new property, you'd go into the commissary at that base and you would get a couple of those things, and they would clean the house like nothing. So when the Scrub Daddy came on to Shark Tank, I was like, that's not new. I have one of those. Now, it wasn't in a cute shape with a face on it, but it was basically the same thing. And you know what's crazy is now that the Scrub Daddy has dominated the market, you can't even find the old one anymore. But they doubled the price and put a smiley face on it, and it worked for them. So I'm not too mad at them, but that stuff really does work. So it's important to minimize your time by using products that will really help you out. You say, well, what does that have to do with my wealth building? Well, the less time you spend doing the drudgery of life, the more time you can spend building wealth and building relationships that matter. Number 9, I like this one, which is $5 a week into savings. And I already know some of you are going to be like, $5, that's nothing. $5 may seem like nothing, but if you saved just $5 a week, or if you get paid weekly, let's do $5 every paycheck, just $5, okay? If you do $5 a week, that's $260 a year. Okay, if you do $5 a weekly paycheck with a 52 week year, that's going to be $520 in just 1 year. You are already head and shoulders above most Americans who cannot handle a $400 emergency without going into debt, which tells you most Americans, if a tire blows or if their hot water heater goes, they're going to have to go into debt, or they're going to have to do without. And very few of us want to make those choices. And most of the time when we make those choices, the choice is made to put it on debt. Okay. And then that increases the debt cycle that keeps a lot of people bound. So I love this one. All right. Number 8 was library card. Now, I had to take a step back because I have because I've lived everywhere. I've got multiple library accounts at different places where I still have mailing addresses. And I realized I have been so busy with the business, I have not maintained my library accounts. I am going to go through, after prepping for this today, I'm going to go through my cards tomorrow or Saturday or something. And I'm going to actually go look and see where my status is. Do I still have a membership? I know they don't use Overdrive anymore. Some of them use Libby, but almost every library out there, even the military ones, you can download the books and apps and audiobooks and all kinds of things for free to your device. Okay. And so library card worth its weight in gold. When I was $800,000 in debt, you know what helped me get out of that debt was checking out things from the library, whether they were self-help books, how to build a business, how to improve my life, how to improve my mindset so that I could stop cutting off opportunities or stop self-sabotaging. If you can't afford a really good mentoring program, or you can't afford a good mastermind, if you can't afford this business product or that business opportunity, one thing you can't afford is a free library card. And in most markets, library cards are still free. All right. Number 7 cracked me up, and it was mini lint rollers. You know, the little lint rollers that you use? You can pack one in your luggage and travel with it. And I never knew what a difference lint rollers made until we had a cat, because I never had pet hair all over me all the time until we had a cat. Even when I was growing up and we had dogs, we didn't have a huge pet hair problem. I don't know if it's because my mom had us basically clean the house top to bottom every day, or maybe it was because those dogs weren't the kind that shedded a lot. I don't know. But when we got that cat, it was like cat hair was everywhere. So I resonate with the mini lint rollers. But one of the things that's is a very small thing that you can pack in your luggage, you can keep one in the car. It makes a huge difference how you show up when you show up clean versus when you show up covered in animal hair. Now, if you live out here in Erath County where I live, everybody, not everybody, but most people out here make their money through animal husbandry, I think is what it's called. Your ranchers, your farmers, things like that. I don't think anybody out here cares you got dog hair all over you, all right? But in many markets, it does matter how we show up. And a mini lint roller for under $5 is something you can do to dramatically improve how you show up, which then improves how people respond to you, which then improves your ability to build wealth. Number 6 on the list, this one is something I had never thought about before because I just naturally ignore ads. I mean, I'm the kind of person that like I pay to watch Netflix without ads, and I use DVR to watch TV. Like I don't even watch live TV. And I'm sure, no, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't put words in his mouth. I sometimes wonder, can we say it like that? I sometimes wonder if it irritates my husband that I don't ever want to watch the Steelers game or the Saints game or my son's Seahawks game or my other son's Chiefs game unless it's like 30 minutes into it so we can skip all the commercials, because I really don't want to see all the boobs and the beer. I just don't want to see all that, you know? But an online ad blocker was the number 6 thing that you can do for $5 or less that will actually help you build wealth. Why? Because it will keep you from wasting your wealth. Do you notice that a lot of these things have to do with wasting your wealth and preventing the wastage? So there's 2 different sides of the same coin, okay? So on one hand, we want to build wealth, and on the other hand, we want to save the wealth we have. On one hand, we want to put things in investments, and on the other hand, we want to retain what our investments have profited. 2 separate sides of the same coin. It's so important to do both. You know, like they always say, the best offense is a strong defense, and the best defense is a strong offense. Both of them are important. You got to be on the offensive and the defensive, all right? So that was number 6. Now, these next couple of ones, y'all, I got to be honest, I was not expecting this to show up on the list. I really, really thought it was like, you know, write a book, your spend plan, invest $5 a day and stuff like that. But the rest of these are really about investing in you. And this next one, number 5, is walking outside for 30 minutes a day with some sunlight. Now, that was not a surprise to me that it would show up on a list of things that you could do to build long-term wealth, but it surprised me still because it's true. Getting some daily exercise and getting some daily sunshine is very important to your long-term health. Too many of us as entrepreneurs, we burn the candle at both ends. We don't get enough rest. We think that we're doing something great because we are moving and shaking and everybody else is sleeping and we're getting it done. Well, you know, depending on your health status, depending on your age, depending on your energy levels, sometimes you think you're getting it done, and all you're doing is making a bigger mess. If you'd have just gone to bed an hour earlier, you might have had a better chance in the morning of actually getting done what you want to get done in less time and with less mistakes. When it comes to walking outside for 30 minutes a day has been scientifically proven to reduce the rate of diabetes by 60%, reduce the rate of heart disease by 50%, reduce the rate of depression by 50%, and it's got a lot of other things that are good for you. And so it doesn't do us any good to build this empire and not have the health and strength in order to enjoy it. It doesn't do us any good to build an empire and not have the family or the relationships to help us enjoy it. So I really love the fact that this made the list. And along the same lines of health is number 4, which is a pill organizer, which I thought was hilarious because I was like, oh yeah, yes, because I will forget to take my medicines, and I don't have any like diabetes or anything like that. I do have some medicine that I take every day because of something that wasn't my fault, But when you go overseas, or you have you're in the military, just things, life happens, and sometimes things are put on you, and it may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility, right? And so I do take a daily medicine, and then I take a lot of vitamins. I take neurological vitamins. I take probiotics and things like that. And that vitamin stack can get pretty high, but it's given me such a high quality of life that instead of what the Air Force neurologist 8 years ago said, you got 5 to 10 years of a good brain left, and after that you're going to be a vegetable. Instead of that, I'm thriving mentally. So I'm thankful for my pill stack, and I'm thankful for my organizer, because I will literally look there and be like, did I already take one of these? Well, I don't know if I already took one of these. Maybe I should take one, but what if I already took one? And again, I'm not taking that many medicines that it really matters that big of a deal, because most of what I'm taking are supplements and vitamins. However, back when I was taking 17 different neurological and other medications, you better believe that the stress was real. Now, if you're not that old yet and a pill organizer is not important to you, then maybe what I might recommend, it's not on their list, but it's something that I might recommend, is a fitness journal. In fact, I should see if I can send that out to everybody. If you're on my mailing list, I'm going to try. Don't hold me to it, because I'm focused on Juneteenth right now, but if I remember to do it, I'm going to write it down as a note. If I don't lose the sticky note, I'm going to try to send y'all my fitness tracker that I used throughout my entire military career. Sometimes, excuse me, I got to learn to stop speaking so fast. That was one of the biggest feedbacks I got lately. We sometimes get frustrated because we're not getting the results that we want to get. And I definitely know that when it comes to my fitness and my health and strength, that has been like the bane of my existence. And sometimes, I'll admit it, y'all, I get in negative energy because I look at how hard I work out, and I look at how mostly clean I eat. And then I watch other people who don't ever work out, and they just eat junk. And I keep telling myself, well, it'll catch up to them. It'll catch up to them. But we're all in our 50s and 60s now. It ain't caught up to them yet. But one of the things that I used was a fitness tracker that I created to help me keep track of, did I do the things I know I need to do? See, you can't always make something happen, okay? You can't always make something happen, but you can make it welcome. I cannot control the amount of weight that does or does not get lost or released, or whatever term you like, okay? I can do the things I'm supposed to do, and I can avoid doing the things I'm not supposed to do, right? So I can control what goes into my mouth. I can control how I move my body. Those are things I can control. How my body metabolizes the things that I give it, I can't control that. How my body processes the movement and how the calories transform, I can't control that. And for many of us, it's different from person to person, okay? It's different from person to person. I found out using my Fitness Pal, I don't know if it's still called that, but back in the day, you could track all your intake and your outgo. And so if you exercised, you put it in, and it told you how many calories you burnt. And if you ate something, you put it in, and it told you how many calories you took in. And what I found is that for me, for JJ Conway, my body does well on a 12. Let me rephrase that. For me, JJ Conway, my body does well on a 1,200 calorie a day amount, okay, of quality, okay. But what it doesn't do is just 1,200 calories. Like, if I just eat 1,200 calories, my body is not as healthy as if I eat more calories and burn down to 1,200. Okay, it's crazy, but you got to learn your own life. And so you can't control a lot of things, but you can control whether you make it welcome. And the fitness journal that I have, that I wrote down here, send out. So make sure you're on my mailing list, okay? Make sure you're on my mailing list. I think it's jjclink.com/list. Get on that list. I'll probably send it out this weekend, because I'm focused on getting everything out for all the assets out for Juneteenth tonight and tomorrow. But I'm going to send out the fitness tracker. Did I drink the water I was supposed to drink? Did I take the supplements I was supposed to take? Did I do the exercise I was supposed to do? Did I get the sleep I was supposed to get? Things like that. And so then I am making it welcome, and I'm doing my part. I can't control the outcome, but if I do my part, the outcome I want is more likely to happen then if I don't do my part, and a lot of times y'all probably heard this a couple weeks ago, we talked about this. We lie to ourselves all day long, thinking we did what we said we were going to do, and then we didn't actually do it. I'm the queen of that. So, so I'm overcoming. I'm recovering. I don't even know what the name is for that, but I am a recovering think I did it but didn't do it person. I don't even know what the name is. Y'all know the name for that? There's a scientific name for that. Put it in the chat. But I am a recovering one of those. And I'm learning to back up and dot my I's and cross my T's and actually finish the things before I move on to the next big idea. I know I'm not the only one out there who makes that mistake. But let's go back to number 4, a pill organizer, or if you don't need pill organizer just yet, a good fitness journal to help track and make sure you're actually doing the things that you say you're going to do. Can be invaluable, again, because it doesn't do us any good to build huge amounts of wealth and not have the health and strength to enjoy it. Because there are just some things we can ruin our bodies, we can ruin our bodies, and we can ruin our bodies, and we can ruin our bodies in the process of building wealth. And some things that we do to ourselves, you can't go back and fix it. Barring a miracle from the Lord who sends his power down from on high to heal your body, some things doctors just can't fix. They can make it better, but making it better can make other things worse, okay? So keep that in mind. It's important to take care of your health, which is, like I said, the top 5 things on this list of things you can do to build the things you can do to accelerate your wealth building for $5 or less. The number 3 one, y'all, I was really shocked about this because I struggle with this for sure. Okay, let's see that we got some cat. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, I think they're responding to the title, but I've got quite a few comments here. They're responding to the title, but they're not responding to the because we haven't even talked about it yet. So the number 3 is drink a gallon of water a day. Now, the interesting thing about number 3, drinking a gallon of water a day, is for me, it's really tough to do. I'm one of those people that if I drink too much of tea or too much of water or too much of anything that's good for me, I will have to go to the bathroom every 2 minutes. Now, I can drink, I'm trying to cut out sodas again. I used to not drink sodas. About 10 years ago, I started drinking them again. And I'm trying to cut them back out. But sodas and certain types of tea I can drink. I actually, am trying to work my way back up with water. But I remember when I was getting such bad cramping when I was pregnant with my little guy. And the doctor was like, you need to drink a gallon of water a day. And I'm like, I'm already having to go to the bathroom ridiculously as a pregnant woman. And I was in the military. So then you had those uniforms. And I did not want to have to go to the bathroom like that. And so, but I did, and all the cramping went away. And the crazy thing about it, all these comments that came under drinking a gallon of water a day, they verified what I have lived, my experience, that drinking enough water, it helps your brain function better. Drinking enough water helps your body function better. Drinking enough water helps you feel fuller, which helps you be more satiated and reduces the impulse eating that many of us do. I'm not going to say that you stress eat because I don't feel like I stress eat. I'll tell you what I do though. Oh, I can't believe I said that. But what I do have to watch out for is anger eating. And then sometimes there's the, it's not stress so much if it's just boredom eating. Anybody else have that happen? So yeah, so that's number 3 was drink a gallon of water a day. Number 2 was quit smoking. And as a financial planner, that's one of the huge things that when it pops out in someone's spend plan that I always try to address. And I know it's not easy. I absolutely know that it is not easy to cut any addiction like that. But the Bible says that we should not allow ourselves to be brought under the power of anything, even if it's something that's lawful for me. That's why I haven't drank Dr. Pepper in a long time, because the way I felt about Dr. Pepper was the way that these people who I met who were in AA, it's the way they felt about alcohol, the cravings and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't know what they put in this stuff, but I'm done. And that was in 2016, was it? I think it was 2016 when I stopped drinking Dr. Pepper. So that's been 9 years now. Now I will say, if I go down to a certain place that has something that tastes very similar, I might try some, but it's not the same. It doesn't have the same effect. Okay. So number 2 was quit smoking. And you think about how expensive smoking gets, and it's really easy for some of us to point our fingers at people who smoke, like, oh, why are you wasting all your money? You're so poor. Why are you wasting all your money? Well, a lot of times when we don't have, the things that we can waste our money on are the things that help us escape what we don't have. And so for some of us today, maybe we don't struggle with smoking, but let's look at other addictions we have. Maybe some of us turn to retail therapy anytime things go wrong in our lives. Maybe some of us turn to video games. I like to play these little games on my phone, and most of them are free games, but they have in-app purchases. And I have found that if I start playing the game when I'm tired, I am 99% more likely, probably 300% more likely to buy in-app purchases than if I'm playing it when I'm well awake and full of energy, okay? Which I'm usually not playing them when I'm well awake, full of energy, because I usually don't play them until I'm putting little one to bed or I'm trying to wind down for the evening, which again is not really a good wind down. But anyway, that's not part of this list. But any addiction that we have where we feel compulsed or we feel obsessive about something could be an avenue of financial ruin for us, or at the very least, it could be an avenue of spending money that should go to our future investments. Okay. And speaking of money that should go to our future investments, actually, that's not even really a good segue, because this has something to do with money, but not the way that lead in would lead you to believe. And that is the number one thing. And it came in different comments and different places, but we collapsed it all down to the number one recommended thing was deleting image-based social media. So things like Instagram, things like TikTok, things like Facebook, and I make good money on Facebook. I make good money on Instagram. I make good money on these different social platforms. But I'll tell you what I don't do. I don't sit there and doom scroll. Okay. Because the more you scroll and scroll and scroll, one, it's changing the dopamine centers in your brain. Okay. Which is making you more susceptible to things that to overspending, to addiction, to irritability and stuff like that. But also because every time I turn around, that algorithm has figured out exactly what I need. It's figured out exactly what I want to buy. It's figured out exactly what I need to see to stay on there longer and get intrigued and maybe watch this and move on to that and to that and to that. Now, that's for me why I don't spend a whole lot of time on social media for personal consumption. But what these folks were saying was that for them, deleting the Insta, especially Instagram was the biggest one that was mentioned. Instagram and even TikTok, and some people mentioned Facebook, but I'm guessing this was a younger crowd. That was now I'm not looking at all these other people and seeing the life that I don't get to live. And it really broke my heart to see those comments over and over and over again. Because no matter where you're at today, you can craft a life that you love. You don't have to be stuck in a life that's unpleasant for you. You can make changes today that your future self will thank you for. You can make changes today that will change the trajectory of your life. And instead of going down that dark path that it seems like is all that's available to you, you could take one step today that opens up 3 or 4 doors tomorrow. 3 or 4 doors that you don't even see yet, but you make that one step today for your future, and you could open up who knows what valuable opportunities to change your life. And 10 years from now, you could look back and be like, wow, I can't believe I am where I am. And I can't believe that I get to do what I do. And I can't believe the person that I've grown into, the person that I've become. And so if you are having an issue with looking at what other people have and feeling less than because your life isn't Instagram perfect, or or feeling what's the other one that everybody feels like they have to respond right away? Snapchat, because I guess if you don't respond right away, you kill the thread. My son put me on Snapchat and I got tired of it because I just couldn't keep it going. I can't, like, and I know, like, today I'm looking at my phone and I have all these missed calls and I have all these texts of people that want to talk to me and they want to call, they want information and they want to talk to me, and I feel bad, but like when I'm prepping for my class, I really have to just put my phone down. And in fact, earlier I had it plugged in another room because I did not want to be distracted and end up starting this class 2 hours late, or, get distracted from sending my headliners what I need to send them for Juneteenth. Like, I needed to be on my game, and I just did not need to have the phone pinging every 20 seconds. And so if you are in that same boat, then it's important to take stock of where you are and to not feel bad about it. Do I feel bad that there are a couple people that did not get response and they may actually need something serious from me? I feel a twinge, but I don't feel bad. I hope everything's well, but I don't feel bad. I will respond to them when I'm done with the class, and hopefully everything will be okay. And I find it interesting. Okay, I know some of you are like, wow, she's a bad friend. I find it interesting that everybody blows up my social media. Everybody wants to talk to me. Everybody needs to text me. It's always when I'm getting ready to teach a class. It's always when I'm getting ready to preach a sermon. It's always while I'm prepping for a class, and always while I'm prepping for a sermon. You got 4 other days out of the week that you could reach out to me and expect an instantaneous response. Now, wait, no, not even gonna lie. It ain't ever gonna be an instantaneous response because I look at my phone in batches. I'm working, I take a break. I'm working, I take a break. I'm playing a game with my kid, I take a break. But you have to realize that even well-meaning people with very real problems that you really want to be there for, that you really want to help, sometimes the enemy can be using them to derail you from your goals. And so that's a little bit beyond our top 10 list of ways that you can accelerate your wealth building for under $5 or less. But I hope that it's been helpful to you and that it has been something that has opened up your eyes to some things, that some easy, quick, and cheap tweaks that you can make to improve your life and improve your ability to build wealth. All right. Woo-hoo. Okay, now we're going to go into the questions. And I think that this is okay, I keep a G-rated channel, y'all. I love your comments, but some of these comments, I'm like, I'm not going to put them up on the screen because I'm not going to put them up on the screen because I do keep a G-rated channel. Okay, but the first question we're going to start off with today. The first question we're going to start off with today, and hopefully it won't be the only question, but if it is, that's okay. We'll get another question next time. Is it unfair of me to sell my house? Hold on, let me make sure I've got it. Is it unfair of me to sell my house and keep the profit even though my boyfriend has lived there 5 years? We are using my VA loan to buy the next house. Okay, he's paying rent. He's paying about 1/3 of the cost of the mortgage. He's paying rent. Okay. All right. And they are about to buy the next house with her VA. Oh, no. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if this was the other way around, if this was a guy calling in and being like, my girlfriend is pressuring me to give her half the equity of the house and put me on the deed to the next house, even though she's not bringing anything to the table. Now, we would all be like, don't do that. She's just after your money, right? Like, we would all be like that. But for some reason, when it's the other way around, we find that, man, this goes right along with the interview that I released last week. Okay. I find an interesting observance. I find it that I can't even say what I want to say, y'all. I can't even get my words out. Okay. Let me back that back. Okay. Let's try that again. I find it interesting that usually when it is a man who owns the property, they owned it before girlfriend moved in. Now they're going to buy another house. Girlfriend is not working. She wants to be on the deed. Whenever you hear a situation like this, everybody's in an outcry about, oh, she's just a gold digger. She just wants you for your money. Yet I don't usually hear it the other way around when it's the woman who's doing the buying. But in this sense, this resonates deeply with me because it reminds me of several client pairs that I had come to me who the woman was ensnared by a narcissist. I am not saying that OP, I'm not let me say that again. I'm not saying that she is ensnared by a narcissist, okay? But I do find it interesting. Now, there's a lot of details I'm not sharing on the question because I don't want to risk giving away too many personal details, okay? Because when you hear VA, you already know this person is either active duty or they are a veteran, okay? And the more details I give, the more likely it is somebody can narrow down who I'm talking to. You know, the military is big, but it's not that big, all right? But it does appear to me that this man is using her. And I really find it strange that they are going to be buying her next house, they're buying it together. Okay, wait a second. They're buying it together. Okay. I find it strange they're going to buy their next house together on her VA, even though he's supposed to be well off, okay? So if you'll remember my interview previously with HG Tudor about why high-powered women become ensnared by narcissists. If you haven't seen it, go out to JJ Knows the Way on YouTube. You can go out to ladiesofwealth.com for the podcast version. This has all the hallmarks of that kind of a situation because she's had this house for 10 years. He's lived there for 5 years, and now they're getting ready to move. He's paid a portion of the rent, but not half of it, not even most of it, a portion of the mortgage. I'm sorry. He's paid a portion of the mortgage, but not even half of it. And he feels entitled to the equity on the house. Now, I don't know what kind of relationship they have, but in my mind, if you're getting $100,000 of equity and a property you've been in for 10 years, and they live in a fairly high cost of living area, okay, that's not a whole lot of equity. That's barely what you should be putting down on the next house. Secondly, why would somebody feel entitled to your money when they aren't paying most of that loan? You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not even if you really just, oh, I love him. Oh, brother. Oh, I love him. And he loves me. And he's good to me. You know what? If he was really good to you, he wouldn't be like, give me half that money. Because it wouldn't be his money or her money. It'd be their money. I said what I said. It would be their money, and they could plan it together if they have that kind of relationship. And I know people don't get married anymore like they used to, because I guess the divorce rate is creeping up over 50%. I've heard that over and over. I haven't seen the stats for myself. But one of the things that's frustrating when I see something like this is like, okay, well, why are you even buying a property with somebody you're not married to? What happens if he gets a wild hair and decides to go off and find other ladies? You got no legal recourse. You're stuck with him on that house. And don't let him not be paying any of the mortgage, because you're legally responsible for all of it. Even if he's on there, you're both legally responsible for all of it. So I'm not liking a whole lot of this at all. And now it could be that they want to do the common law thing. They don't want to get married. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest with you. And it's not me just putting my old-fashioned religious values on you. I mean, I do have a religious opinion about it, but it's also from a financial perspective, it's not the smartest way to go. And we can talk about that some other time, because I want to get to some other questions today. But maybe you are in those situations where you've got shared finances and you guys have been working together. But what's written in this entry does not sound like they have got shared expenses. In fact, it sounds like she's carrying the heavy load, even though he's making a lot of future promises about what he will do or what he won't do. In fact, my recommendation, if this person was to come on and be a client of mine, they're not married, so I don't need to talk to him unless she just wants to. But if this person decided to become a client of mine, one of the things that I would work with her on is setting those proper boundaries and not enabling somebody who does not appear to be doing their part of the relationship financially. Okay, so what would that look like? Okay, that would look like taking stock of her dreams and her goals and where she wants to go, and then charting a path to get her there in vehicles that are not connected to him. So I am not a fan, let me just say this again, I am not a fan of women investing. I'm not a fan of men doing it either, but I find that more women do this than men. Okay, I am not a fan of women investing their funds in things that are shared with a man who is not doing his part instead of building her own. Now, if you're married, that's different, especially if you're in a community property state, because if you're married or if you live together long enough to be considered common law marriage in that state and you're in a community property state, well, then everything you build is his anyway, and everything he builds is hers anyway. Okay, but that's not all the states. There's plenty of states out there that what's his is his and what's hers is hers, and only if they're both on it are they both obligated to those debts, and they're both allowed to be co-owners and receive the profits from. Okay, so what does this look like in real life? This looks like, okay, where do you want to be when you retire? Okay, what kind of investments can you put together? Are you in a state where you can buy property I mean, he's not even a spouse, so I wouldn't even put him on. Can she buy property? Can she invest in the stock market? Can she do these things? You know what I wouldn't invest in? I wouldn't invest, and I'm using air quotes for those of you listening on the Ladies of Wealth podcast, because I don't consider this an investment when you're not married. I wouldn't, quote unquote, invest in paying down his debt. I wouldn't invest, quote unquote, in paying down his truck. I wouldn't, because I've had ladies, I'm only saying this because I've had ladies come to me like they're facing a divorce or they're facing some issue. Their husband has been cheating, or there's this or that has happened in the marriage, and they come to me to like, what do I need to do to take care of myself? And their plan before they come to me is, well, we have all these shared debts together. I'm going to pay this off and pay this off and pay this off and pay that off before we file. So then it's all, he has his stuff and I have my stuff. But wait, when we go through it, isn't it interesting? All of his debt is shared. All of your debt is yours. All of his debt is shared. All of your debt is yours. How come you signed on his truck? I mean, it's 2025, so I guess I can't say be a man and pay for your own truck. You know, I mean, if my husband had asked me to take a loan, to help him take a loan for his truck, oh no. First of all, I don't believe in loans for vehicles, but so that's really a bad example. But seriously though, and it's because of this giving heart. And men are following that too. If y'all ever read my book, my dating book, 40 Dates in 4 Months, there was a guy in there that was such a sweet guy. And I just knew I'm a nice person. I like to think I might be critical about some things and I might be very direct about some things, but at my core, I'm a nice person. I just want you to succeed. And I want all of us to have a good time together and all of us to make it to heaven together. And I could even tell that I would take advantage of this guy because he's like, well, I could buy you a car. I could do this. I could do that. He's like, you're the first normal person I've met, the first normal woman I've met through this dating website. And I was like, oh no, I love how all that sounds because I've never had anybody in my life dote on me like that. But no, I can't because I can see even my personality. I could see myself taking advantage of him later on and being like, well, he offered. So I was like, nope. So you can read about that in my book. It's on Amazon. It's like $1 or $2 or something like that. 40 Dates in 4 Months. So I have seen a few men like that, but mostly I see women like that, where the guy is just basically sponging. Well, we don't call it sponging. We call it love. And we don't call it mooching. We call it sharing a life together and moving together. But how come you're doing all the heavy lifting? How come he wants to use her VA loan when he's supposed to have money? Someone explain that to me. Oh, with the VA loan, you don't have to put anything down. Have you ever stopped, all you veterans out there? I'm a veteran. I've done several VA loans, but have you ever stopped to calculate the funding fee and the other issues with a VA loan? Have you ever stopped to calculate how expensive let me rephrase this again. How expensive a VA loan actually is in terms of total dollars spent? Anybody who does financial analysis would tell you, if you could afford to do a traditional loan, do the traditional loan. Better yet, do a 15-year loan. Oh, well, I'm going to use other people's money. I don't want to have to tie up my funds. Yeah, he's using other people's money. All right. He's using her money. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a hard no on this one, because he could take that equity, he could take that $50,000 of equity, and he could roll on his merry way. And they could buy a house together, and he could roll on and do something else with that 50,000, buy him a truck, buy him a car, buy him whatever, go take some other new lady out. And then he goes off to, he goes off to Canada or something. And then she's stuck with this house payment. And whenever she does sell the house, if she does sell a house at a profit, he gets half of it because he's on the deed. No, sir. No, ma'am. I'm not a big fan of this at all. All right. And again, if you did not watch my interview, or if you haven't listened to it on the Ladies of Wealth podcast, my interview with H.G. Tudor about narcissists and how high-powered women get ensnared by narcissists, you got to go out there and listen to that. I want to have him back on the channel to talk about the financial impact of being ensnared by a narcissist. His work is fascinating. Now, I will warn you, he is a self-declared narcissistic psychopath. And so, I'm not trying to get any of my members to get some kind of Silence of the Lamb thing going on here. Okay. Take his words for what they are and believe who he is when he tells you the first time. Okay. And so, but very eye-opening, fantastic channel. Narcissism and psychopathy. Narcissism and psychopathy. You got to go out there. His channel is phenomenal. He's got another one called Knowing the Narcissist, the Ultra, and that one's really, really good too. But a lot of his new stuff on that channel is pop culture. So if you want the older good stuff, you go sort the videos by oldest, and you'll get where you need to go. Okay. All right. So that's that question. Should I give my live-in boyfriend some of the equity? No. Nope. In fact, I need sound effects. I need a big no, or I need what Clark Howard used to have. Y'all, who's listened to Clark Howard long enough? Y'all remember when he used to do the danger, the warning sirens, and the danger. Yep. Okay. Our next question today is, how can I get an apartment with bad credit? Okay. And so this person has been denied because of their low credit score, even though they've paid their bills. And I really identify with this person, because I think the credit industry is more based on your individual self now. Okay. But back in the day, when I first applied for credit as a fresh second lieutenant, 2 months graduated from the Air Force Academy, trying to set up my first little apartment, I was denied for Kmart credit because my then husband had a ton of debt and I didn't know about it. And back then, I don't know if y'all remember this, back then, a woman's financial status was tied to her husband's. And I was not alive old enough for this to, I didn't say that right. I was not old enough to notice this, but apparently back when I was born, a woman couldn't get a loan or open up a bank account without her husband signing off. I know that wasn't a thing by the time I was 10 or 11 or 12, because once I started babysitting, I was able to open up my own bank account for my babysitting money, which I absolutely had to do because my dad would find ways to find my stash of money. And so I ended up, this is so bad. I love God rest his soul. We built a wonderful relationship after some things happened in his life that brought him to the Lord. But when I was younger, I had to have 2 stashes. I had to have one for him to find and take the money out of, and then I had to have the other one that was my cash on hand, and then I had my bank account. because otherwise that money would be gone. It was always used for my siblings too. That's the worst part. Like, oh, I'm going to fix your brother. I'm sorry, I took your money. I needed to fix your brother and sister's bike. Well, fix them out of your money. Or how about get me a bike? How about fix my bike? Well, your bike isn't as bad as theirs because you take care of your stuff. Funny thing is I also would always get in trouble for not taking care of my stuff because I was that engineer kid that always wanted to take it apart and rebuild it. So a lot of my stuff was always taken apart and rebuilt and taken apart and rebuilt. So anyway, I don't even know how I got on that. Okay, so anyway, I understand. I understand what it's like to have bad credit. That's really where I was going at. And today, having bad credit isn't tied to somebody else. You know, that floored me when I went to set up my first apartment and they were like, nope, your credit's not bad. You're gonna have to put all that stuff in your cart back. And then of course back then nobody had any shame about anything, right? So they just broadcasted over the internet, over the whole store, the loudspeaker at Kmart, like I think my name was still John back then. I think, but Lieutenant John, go back and do this or do that. And come back and see the office. Your credit's been denied. Let's see if we can do something else. And like it was so embarrassing. I forget how they did it, but it was obvious that my credit had been denied. And then when I found out, because even then they would still send you a letter that said, here's why your credit was denied. And I don't think it was a credit score or anything, because I don't think I learned about credit scores till a lot later, but it was because of my ex-husband, the debt that he had. So anyhow, today that shouldn't be as much of an issue, but I understand from many times over how hard it is to rebuild your life when you've got bad credit. And I remember for a while, me and my ex-husband were on different loans together, and it took a long time to extricate each other from those loans. And we still have one together that the property has never gone back up to the worth that it had when the market crashed. We paid $405 for it, and the property is only worth like $329 now. So I mean, it's been 15 years, 20 years almost, right? 17 years, I don't know, whenever the market crashed, and that property still hasn't come back to being worth what it needs to be to sell it off and pay everything. And so we can talk about all that another day, but for a while, I want to make sure I say that accurately. That property would sell for enough to break even. And I kept trying to sell it, and I kept thinking it was going to sell. And because I thought, hey, they're going to buy it. They're going to buy it. They're going to buy it. And I would tell people, oh, but because you record things a long ways out. So on those interviews and stuff, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm debt free. Well, November would come and I said in March that I was going to be debt free, and then I wasn't debt free. And so I've always felt bad about that. But there's still that property. It can be sold now, but I'm like, you know what? I'm on an accelerated plan and just go ahead and pay that thing off, and then probably move back into it, or at least move back into it part-time so I can do some business out there. Anyway, TMI about me. But I just remember what that was like. And I remember what it's like to have somebody that's not paying their bills, and you have two choices. You could either pay their bills for them and keep your credit good, or you could let them suffer the consequences of not paying their bills for them, but then you aren't taking care of your credit either. And you can send a letter to the credit agency and explain that this is their responsibility and they're supposed to do this, and here's the documentation, but that doesn't mean that they're going to take that letter into account. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about on getting a property or getting an apartment with bad credit. When we have bad credit, now look, do you notice that I'm talking about things that aren't really your fault? Okay. If you just haven't been paying your bills, I need you to pay your bills. Okay. You think, oh, well, my phone bill doesn't matter. It matters. Okay. You think this bill and that bill doesn't matter. They matter. Okay. So just pay your bills and pay them on time. All right. But when it comes time to getting an apartment, sometimes we have these situations where our bad credit is not really our fault, or it was our fault in the beginning, but we've been working hard to repair it. Another situation that people come to me with is when a family member or a parent or an auntie or a grandmother or a best friend or somebody like that has run up credit in your name. And it's different from stranger doing an identity theft, because you don't know the stranger and you're more likely to file a police report and do all the things. Now, some of you watching me today, you're like, I'm filing a police report no matter what. And that's where I am today. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you on that. But back in the day, when I first realized I had a family member who was running up credit in my name, I didn't have the heart. I hate to admit it, but I did not have the heart to file a police report. And I did not have the heart to hold them accountable. So what can you do in that situation? Well, the best way to handle it is to file a police report and to press charges and to proceed with trying to get your money back. That's the best way to handle it. And it's also the best way to tell your freeloading family to get out of my life and get out of my financial life. But then fortunately, if you tell them get out of my financial life, guess what they're going to also do? Get out of your life, period. And that's never a good feeling. Okay. The next best thing you can do is you can lock down your credit by freezing it and send a note to the credit card bureaus and let them know that this is what's happened. And while you're pursuing options for getting things restored or options for getting your money back, however you choose to pursue them, I wouldn't go into detail on that. But while I'm pursuing the things that are happening, or I'm pursuing ways to get my money back, but please understand that this was not mine, and we're doing the best I can. You can send that letter and you can freeze your credit. And then if you have to thaw your credit to go after a mortgage or something like that, well, then that letter will be there and hopefully no new credit will have been run up in your name. Okay. But barring those kinds of things, there's really not that much you can do. And then even if you freeze your credit, you run into the problem that this person's having. Now, this person did not say that they had frozen their credit. They were basically frustrated because apartment complexes would not even look at them if they didn't have the certain number of credit. And I, as a landlord, I understand that, because a lot of times when you go to the landlord conventions or you use the landlord software, a lot of times it's automatic. You apply in the system automatically kicks you out if your credit is not high enough. So how can you get a good apartment even if you have bad credit? I'm going to say you're going to use the same tactics that I used when I came home from my military trip to find my house sold and my stuff thrown out, and I needed to find a place to live that night. Very rarely is it that somebody needs to find a place to live that night and they're actually legit people who pay their bills on time. Usually somebody who needs a place to live today is because they haven't paid their bills and they've ignored their problems and they haven't taken action. And as the Bible says, the foolish see trouble, the wise people see trouble brewing and they take action, but the foolish keep going and they're punished. And so in this case, a lot of times people are facing financial issues and they're expecting a miracle. They're expecting their ship to come in. They're expecting to get that bonus, fill in the blank, whatever it is they think is going to make everything work out. And then at the ninth hour, the 11th hour, the 1 minute left to saving my financial standing with this property, with this house, with this apartment, nothing has come in. No cavalry has come in to save the day. No knight on a white horse has come in. The Lord has not sent down a miracle working thunderbolt and worked it out. And I'm somebody who believes in the Lord's miracles, but somehow, some way, it has not worked out for you. And now you've been evicted. Now you've been foreclosed on. Now you've been fill in the blank. And now you've got to go find a place tonight. That's the person that usually needs to find an apartment right now. And so for me, it was very difficult to find someone who would take me. But the way that you do this is relationship. Okay. So you have to be able to show a couple things. If your credit is bad, or if you have been on a journey of not caring about your credit while you are working our get out of debt plans, okay, especially those of you who started off where you can't pay your bills. If you started off not being able to pay your bills, then on the short term, your credit's going to get worse, because what do I tell people to do? Don't spend money you don't have. And so when we put you on a pro rata plan, if you only have $20 left over at the end of the month to send to all your billers, well, then that's what we send. And we split it up according to who gets their fair share. And we write a letter to explain why, but that's all you got. That's all you send. And so your credit will get worse before it gets better. Okay. And if you have to move in that situation, or if you have to go on and get to the next apartment or the next the next dwelling place, whatever it might be, well, it's going to impact you. So what can you do about it? You have to be able to show a track record of paying your bills. That's first and foremost. Then you have to build enough of the relationship with somebody who has an apartment or a dwelling for you to rent that you will be able to show them that you are somebody who pays your bills. And if you haven't been able to do that, you may need to look into temporary options that allow you to build that base and build that foundation of paying your bills, paying your rent on time, whether you rent a room or whether you rent a trailer or whether you rent something that's cheap enough that you can afford, okay? And again, you're still looking for somebody who isn't just running you through a gonculator and only filtering into them the people with good credit, because those people aren't ever going to even see your application. You've got to get to the people, the mom and pops out there, the apartment complex that has a manager that you can actually go talk to. And that's what I did. I went from apartment complex to apartment complex to apartment complex to apartment complex. And I was like, look, this is what's happened. I came home yesterday and my house was sold. I've been gone for 6 months. I came home and my house was sold. My husband is taken up with somebody else, and I have no place to live, and person after landlord turned their back on me. But one lady, Taylor at the verandas, she said, you know what? I'm going to take a chance on you, because she could see that I made 3 or 4, 5, 6 times whatever their rent was. I made good money. I was pulling in 6 figures with my military paycheck. Okay. I was a lieutenant colonel. I was making good money. Right. But no, I wasn't a lieutenant colonel yet. I was a major. Okay. But I was still making good money, y'all. I was still making 6 figures. And so, I made plenty enough to cover the rent. And of course, it was like the bougiest place in town. Like, it was this is so bad. I'm going to tell you how long ago it was. It was $900 a month for rent. And that was like double everything else. But I needed a place to live. And this is the only lady that was going to take a chance on me. So I was like, I don't care at this point. But I'll tell you what happened. I loved living there. And after that, I was spoiled. Like, I didn't want to go live in no raggedy apartment anymore. Look, I want to live where you put your trash out by the door and they come and take it from you. Y'all, it was gated. And me and my little one, my big boy was 3 then. We could go walking around the duck pond and we didn't have to worry about nothing. They had immaculate facilities, an immaculate clubhouse, an immaculate pool. I mean, and I had a little tiny garage that I paid $50 extra a month for. And I couldn't get it right away, but I eventually added it on. They had a car wash. They had all the things, and it just ruined me. Like I love living in my own house now. And if y'all ever come to see my house here in Stephenville, you're gonna be like, wow, that's where you live. It's such a small house, but it's a sturdy house. It's stood the test of time, and it's paid for. So we'll take it, right? But if I have to go back to apartment living, you better believe I am not going to be living in some shack, where I have to walk 2 miles to throw my trash in the dumpster. But anyway, the only reason I got that apartment, and it was the last place I tried in the greater Montgomery, Alabama area, was because I could prove to her that I am somebody who pays my bills. And you have to be able to prove that you're somebody who pays your bills, and you have to find the people that are willing to either manually underwrite is the official term for it, where they basically look at your documentation and say, yes, we'll try you, no, we won't. Or somebody who's willing to work with you and doesn't use one of those systems. And sometimes it can feel so frustrating when no one will work with you. But I promise you, there are landlords out there that will work with you. You've got to find the right one. I'm telling you, you've got to, I've got a little one snuggling my foot over here. You've got to find the people that are willing to work with you, and they exist. One of the things that I like to remind my clients is that if you will make a commitment to spending less than you make, and not spending more than you make. It may be hard. It may be tough. There may be times where you feel like giving up, but the Lord will always open up a door for you, will always open up a way for you to make it work with what you bring in that month. And the reason it's so hard for many of us is because we're not committed to that mindset. The enemy shows up with a problem and we fall for it every time. That if you make that commitment to yourself, make that commitment to your financial future, one of the things that you will find is that doors will open. And you got to go through a lot of pain and a lot of thrash to find them, but the doors will open. And when they open, it's usually better than anything else you could have ever found. Like you find that person that's going to let you rent their home and your credit isn't that good and you pay your bills on time, you pay that rent on time, you pay your utilities on time, every time. Now you're becoming a blessing to them and they're becoming a blessing to you. You never know. They might turn around and offer to sell you that house. You just never know. Oh, I know I'm speaking to somebody right there. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm looking at the time and I'm like, well, that's yet another one question that's going to be a whole episode, a whole podcast episode right there. But I think that those examples, as disjointed as they may be, will be helpful to somebody. So if you are listening as part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast, then I want to encourage you to join us Thursday nights when we do this class live and we extract from the Thursday classes most of the podcasts, excepting the ones where I interview somebody, which we are ramping back up our interviews. We stopped our interviews for a while because we had so many backlogged that I just didn't feel like I could legit take on a new person knowing that it might be 6 months before I actually publish their episode, right? Like some spaces they do that, but I don't have that big of a name yet. Like, but this is going to sound so bad. 6 months from now, half the people that come on with a business idea, it might be a great business idea and I want to share it with you to inspire your business idea, but I'm not going to be naive about it. A year from now, half the new entrepreneurs that come on my channel and advertise their amazing ideas, which are amazing, or I don't let them come on, won't be in business. Say what? No, they're not going to be in business. In fact, that's what happened with a bunch of the interviews that I had tried to push out. Like I went to go link to those people's websites and it's all 404 site not found. Why? Because they didn't follow sound financial principles. Their idea was amazing. They themselves were amazing, but they did not follow sound financial principles and they did not build a business that could sustain. Now, some people, I don't know who needs to hear this, but you need to not get caught up in this, okay? You need to not get caught up in this, and you need to not be looking at somebody else feeling bad about yourself, because what a lot of people do is they move from business to business to business to business to business, and they extract money out of one, and then they close it down and make the next one, and extract money out of that, and close it down and make the next one, and extract money out of that, and close it down and make the next one. If they've got a good idea, even if that's their MO, and they're not selling any debt to you, I'm going to let them come on the channel, okay? But you have to understand that's how some people roll. In fact, I once talked with a club owner in Shreveport as they were opening up a new joint. And of course, I'm part of the Shreveport. Well, I was on the board for the Shreveport Bossier African American Chamber. And so it was one of my jobs was to go to all of these things where we had new businesses open up and stuff, and like ribbon cuttings and different things like that. And I was just talking with him like, I heard that you had something else in this space not long ago. And he's like, oh yeah. And I said, well, why did it shut down? I'm just curious, just as a financial planner that helps people build businesses, why did that shut down? He said, oh, because it ran its course and I always shut my stuff down before they dip. And he did not draw this chart, okay? I'm going to tell you right now. He did not draw this chart that I'm going to draw you. But I love to draw charts. So if you're listening on the podcast, go out to YouTube and you can see this chart, okay? In his mind, if you have a good launch, your business starts off making money, okay? And he had good launches because he had a good name and he was well known in the community. So whenever he opened something up, it automatically started off making money. And it would make money. And then over time, people got bored. They're looking for the bigger, better deal, the next big thing. And then that business would begin to drop off. And what he would do, this is what he would do. He did not draw this chart, okay? I'm telling you, I am extrapolating from his words. And I'm drawing a chart for you based on his words of how he does it. So if I'm misrepresented on my chart, he can come back and let me know. He probably don't even remember who I was. Okay. But in his mind, okay. in his mind, he always started with a certain amount of money because he had been doing this long enough that he kind of understood how much he was going to make at a launch. That was his seed money. His seed money goes into it to help get it where it needs to go. Then he launches, and then he just starts making money. Then the business peaks, and then it gets down to a point where the business stops making so much money. He always reserves his seed money. I really put that seed in the wrong spot. So I should put that over here. I'm not going to change it, but I'm going to just do it like that. Okay. He always reserves his seed money so that when this business starts to draw off, because that's just the nature of the business cycle in that market, then what he does is he closes it down. Oops. Okay. He closes it down at this point where he's got his seed money, but now if he keeps the business open, now he's going to dip into his seed money because it's losing money from where he started. Okay. And then he opens up the next one, and he opens up the next one, and he opens up the next one. And so what you find then for him, for his business cycle, because he starts off with his seed money, all of the shaded green area above that is profit. And he just rinses and repeats. And I thought, wow, he just rinses and repeats. And I thought, wow, that's actually pretty snazzy. All right. So I'm saying all that to say well, I don't even know how I got on that. Oh yeah, because we finished the question about the getting apartment, and then we were talking about people on the thing, and we're gonna have more interviews. But if you are listening as part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast, we do encourage you to be on. And if you have a business, or if you have something that you think my audience would really benefit for, we have reopened the ability to have guests again, and we would love to have you come on. All right. Okay. Let me just find my cap that fell down, and then I'm going to set up. We're almost done. We got one more question left, and this one shouldn't take long, but I do want your input while I'm thinking about it. You know, we used to do a three show a week format. We did a Mindset Monday, a Wealth Building Wednesday, and then a Juice with JJ on Saturdays. And the Mindset Monday and the Wealth Building Wednesday, the Mindset was mostly teaching, and the Wealth Building was mostly Q&A, and then guests for either one of those. And then the Juice with JJ was generally about scams or money shenanigans or things that you need to be aware of that suck your money out of your life, okay? And so while I am finding the marker to this that fell down, I would love for you to drop in the chat, or you can PM me and I'll read it later, if you liked that format, or if you prefer the new format now where we basically aren't labeling the shows that way. We are just releasing them, and we're trying to keep them all to about half an hour. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. All right, let me know. I'm going to take a quick sip here, and then I'm going to find that cap. And then we'll get to our last thing, which is a credit card scam that you need to run away from. Okay, I found it. Okay. All right, let's see the time. 1:12. Okay, so I do want to talk about this scam. How did I even find this? I don't even know how I found it, y'all. But I have been knowing that credit repair scams are a scam for a long time. And this is going to make a lot of people mad, and this is one of the reasons why I don't have as many sponsors for the show as I could have. Because, you know, when you have a show like the Ladies of Wealth podcast, generally speaking, the people who sponsor financial stuff, they are people who sell debt. They are people who sell insurance. They are people who There are people who sell credit repair or any number of products that, in my professional judgment, I don't recommend. So if you want to get a house and you take on a mortgage, I'm not going to be mad at you for that. But if you're going to go get a house and take out a loan for your investment property, I don't roll with that. I'm not saying people haven't made millions doing that, but I've seen more people who've ruined their lives doing that. So I've never seen anybody ruin their life who buys real estate the way I teach it and does a cash basis. Now, I've seen people who don't have as much money as they want, but I've never seen anybody ruin their life. Like the people who have, they control $1 million of property with other people's money. And then all of a sudden COVID happens and now you can't pay any of those loans because none of your tenants are paying their rent, or this happens or that happens in your life. And now you're stuck holding the bag. Right. And that's what I see more often. I am not saying that people don't make money with debt. And I'm also not saying that I wouldn't utilize certain types of debt products, that I wouldn't utilize certain types of debt products. For example, one of the things that I want to get into once I build a little bit more seed money and build up some more property in my current location is I wanted to get into note buying. Well, buying notes is buying debt. And it's one of those interesting things in the scripture. Like I find in the scriptures tell us don't go into debt and don't lend people. But it also gives you guidelines if you are going to lend to people, how to not be in usury, how to not charge usury, right? So I always found that to be very interesting. But when I look at buying notes, I look at minimizing the amount of debt that's in the world and lowering the amount of debt that's in the world. And I'm not doing this because I'm just a good person and I care about people and I just want people to, be happy and unicorns and rainbows. But because if I can take a non-performing note and if I can restructure it so that it's profitable for me, it's profitable for the person who's in that property, who now doesn't have to move because we can restructure it, and then it's profitable for the bank that doesn't have a bad note on their books anymore, I call that a win-win-win. Okay, so I can give you an example of that. Let's just say the bank has a note. Let's say the bank has a property that's worth $100K. Y'all know I like to work in round numbers to make the math easy, right? The bank is worth $100K and the note is still $100K because they bought it last year. They used one of those special programs and they didn't have to put anything down and they thought they were going to do well, but then they realized, hey, when we don't put anything down, we have all kinds of extra fees and we have all kinds of extra this and extra that. And we didn't know that when the water heater goes out, we can't call the landlord anymore. So now we gotta pay for that, and so they still have $100K on the note that's non-performing. Okay, I should have made this in red. All right, so the loan is at $100K, the house is worth $100K, non-performing. So then what the bank might say is, you know what, let's go ahead and sell this to somebody else. Where'd my blue go? I just had a blue. I don't know what I did with it. All right, well, we'll use purple. Say, you know what, JJ Conway, we've got this $100,000 note that is not performing at all, and we don't want it on our books anymore because they just bought the house, and our insurance is only going to give us 80% of that, and so, we just want to get this off our books, and so they're willing to give that note to me for $20K. Oh, that is not a very dark purple. Okay, so now I have a $20K note. I spent $20K on a $100,000 note. These people still owe me $100,000. Okay, these people still owe me $100,000. They still owe $100,000. Oh, I forgot to write the loan amount. Let's just say that they were paying bank $1,000 a month. Okay, what I can do is be like, look, I understand you guys fell on some hard times. Here's what we're going to do. I understand that you owe me this $100,000, but what we're going to do is we're going to lower your interest rate from the 7% that's got you paying $1,000 a month. We're going to lower that down to 3% or 2% or whatever it needs to be. And we're going to cut your payments down to about $600 a month. Okay. Is that a benefit for the homeowner? That's absolutely a benefit for the homeowner. All right. So now they're paying me $600 a month. They still owe me $100K. Okay. They still owe me $100K. I paid $20K. If they make 4 payments, okay? If they make 4 payments on time, how much is that? Okay? That's 20. Wait, 6 times 4. Math in public is 24, right? That's $2,400. And then, oh, you know what? I messed that up. That's $2,400. And so what I was trying to show is that's in over 10 months. That's what I needed. 40 payments. Sorry. 40 payments. That's $24,000. Okay. 40 payments. 40 payments. Okay. That's 3.5 years. Okay. Well, we got them on a $600 a month for 30 years, which means over the course of that loan, they owe me $100K. Okay. They could pay me off whatever the amortization scheme is. And I hope y'all understand this. I hope this is not news to you. Okay. I hope you do understand that when you buy a house, you're generally paying like 3 times what that house is worth by the time you pay your loan out, right? Okay. But what I want to show you with this is I get my money back in 3.5 years, and then the rest is gravy. And if they don't keep paying, I take them out of the house. I foreclose on the house. I put somebody else in the house, rent to own, and I probably put them at the market rate of $1,000 a month. The market, whatever the market interest rates are. So I'm not saying, people who buy notes or buy loans or anything like that are the devil. But what I find is that when people come in and they want to talk about credit, they want to talk about credit repair, and they want to talk about doing all this stuff with credit, they're usually scamming the system. And it's usually a temporary effect. How many of you are my age and older, and you remember when everything that was done with the credit bureau was not done with internet? It was done through fax, and it was done with letters. And me and my ex-husband, we actually bought into this system where we gave our credit information to the people who ran the system. They used to work for one of the credit bureaus. And what they would do is every month or so, they would send letters and say, take this off and take this off and take that off and take that off and take that off and take that off. And it was all done through fax and letters. And then we would get all these letters back from the credit bureau. So like every month we get like 15 or 20 letters, like this has been removed, this has been removed, this would be removed, this would be removed. And so in the year that we were in that program, yes, our credit was probably the highest it had ever been at that time because they were constantly scrubbing and cleaning it. Okay. Did it need to happen? Well, for the money we paid them, you know what we really could have done? We could have just paid our bills. And we would have come out way ahead. Instead of paying them $1,000 every month, and this was almost 20 years ago, instead of paying them $1,000 every month, we could have just spent an extra $200 or $300 and paid our bills. And then our credit would have been great, and we wouldn't have had to pay all them, and they wouldn't have had to waste all the paper and the fax and the ink and all the things, right? But we just fell into this mindset of, oh, we can't possibly do it for ourselves. And so I see that now. And so when people come to me, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to use credit repair, and you're paying $900 for somebody to scrub your credit temporarily so you can go get a loan on a car, or you can go get a apartment, or you can go get a mortgage. If you have to do that, I'm telling you right now, as your friendly neighborhood financial planner who you have not engaged, so this is not actually professional advice, but somebody who cares deeply about you, and I want you to understand the broad educational concepts. If you have to do that, you cannot afford what you are trying to do. Because if you could afford what you were trying to do, you wouldn't have to go through those machinations. Your credit and your finances would be where they need to be, that you don't have to deal with that issue. Okay. Now, is that a scam? That's not necessarily a scam. But let me tell you what I found out about today. because I was just curious. Because I've been around this block for quite a bit of time, and I've watched things come and go, and it's always temporary, and it costs the people a lot of money. And in fact, there was one person who I really wanted to sell one of my properties to because I just really wanted them to have it. It was really, they've been in it so long, it's their house. And they started talking about the credit repair. It was going to cost them $2,500. And I thought to myself, for $2,500, you could have a mortgage on this property and not have to go through the credit repair, because guess who's the bank? Of course, I'm not going to say that, but in my mind, I was like, could you just submit this application through my company? Oh, no. We're going to do this credit repair. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Just submit the application. And you tell people, but you can't tell people because you can't do too much on that. But when I decided the other day, I came across this credit repair, and I thought, let me just walk through this a little bit. Y'all, I don't even know. It is posted out there on the internet for anybody to find. This person got a whole list of their menu of options. If you want to get a car, they'll scrub your social, they'll scrub this, they'll scrub that. If you want to get this, they have different levels of, hold on, let me bring it up, because I don't want to say, I'm not going to show it to you personally, okay? I'm not going to do that. All right. Because let's see. I don't want to show it to you personally because I don't want to give this person any business. And I also, you know what? If the cops haven't already caught him, that's not my job. But really, I just don't, there may be more to the story. I doubt it, but there may be more to the story. And I'm not an investigator. And I'm not even an investigative reporter. So, but I'm going to pull this up real quick. Let's see. Where is it? It was just today that I found it. And I added it to our lineup for tonight. Okay. Credit repair. Okay. What I know it's in the podcast folder. Yep. Nothing like being live and you can't find what you're looking for. I really thought I would remember it, and I didn't think I was going to have to try to find it for you guys. Maybe, recent items. Are you serious? Come on, now don't do this to me. I probably saved it in the wrong place. It was just last night, early this morning. Oh, fake tenant profiles. This one's for carboning. Okay, so that's why I couldn't find it. I didn't title it what I needed to title it. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I know y'all can't see this, and I know watching me click stuff is not entertaining. So if you're still on, thank you. But this is called, I'm not going to show it to you. I'm just going to read it to you. Okay. This is called moving services. Okay. This is how they can help you move to whatever you want. So if you want to pay $500, they will give you what's called the basic apartment approval package. They'll give you a fully activated new social security number, email, and phone number. They'll get you the digital social media. They'll get you a proof of income. They'll get you 4 stubs and 3 statements and an offer letter. They'll give you employment and rental. Whoa, typo. They'll give you employment and rental verification. And he was like, now look, I imagine that nobody who subscribes to my podcast or is watching me right now is somebody who would utilize this service. However, I have a lot of real estate investors who are in my sphere of influence because we invest together, right? You need to watch out for this, okay? This is a scam. So I titled it Scams You Need to Run From. You need to be careful about getting involved in any kind of credit repair scams that are out there, especially if they offer to work directly with the bank for you. You don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. And if they're doing this kind of stuff for you behind the scenes and not advertising it like this person is, you might be left holding the bag when the authorities come knocking on your door. That's one side of the scam you need to be away from. But if you're on the landlord side of the scam, you need to know that these things exist, okay? So now this one is like the luxury apartment approval package. You get a whole new social, whole new phone number, whole new email, your digital profiles they create for you, your digital social media. They're going to give you the employment stuff. They're going to walk you through the application process. They're going to give you a credit monitoring login with a guaranteed high score. Only $950. They're going to get y'all. You need to watch out for this. You don't want to be taken for a ride. All right. I love this house approval package. They get you the new social security number, the new digital platforms, your new email and all that stuff. You get 6 stubs, 6 statements. Now, it's interesting. They don't do a tax return, and with today, you need that. But I love how all packages include multiple applications. If you are denied or change your mind, for any reason, and additional income documents if requested by the property. $75 rush fee applies if you want to skip the line or expedite your process. Allow 2 to 4 weeks for credit repair and score increase. Okay, so for just a little bit of cash, they can make sure you get the house you want. But I'm telling you, if you got to pay somebody $1,500 to get to get a whole new profile so the bank will lend to you, you ought not be buying a house. Don't get mad at me now, okay? Because somebody who's on hard times but otherwise pays their bills can take their bank statement and show the landlord or show the mortgage approver, the lender, the bank, whoever you're going through to get your mortgage. If you're doing owner finance, you're going to send it to the owner. If you're going through a bank or a mortgage, you're going to send it to the underwriter. If you fell on hard times and you're genuinely climbing your way out of it, but you've been paying your bills for the last year, then you should be able to show that documentation. You shouldn't have to go through one of these scam services and pay them $1,500 to make you look like a good person on paper. And if you haven't had a good year or so of being able to pay your bills on time, then you might not be a good candidate to buy a house. And I'm not trying to be mean and I'm not trying to be rude to anybody, but I'm trying to let you know if you go that route, you're going to get in that house and what's going to happen. You're probably going to have too high of an interest rate. So you're going to pay more for your house than you should have. And then when everything in life starts happening to you, you're not going to have the savings. You might not have the savings. You might have the savings, but you might not have the savings to do something about it. And then your life is always going to be spent robbing Peter to pay Paul so that you can make ends meet. It'd be better to draw back, get in someplace smaller, pay your bills on time, build up a savings, and then buy. Or if that feels too laborious for you, use some of the real estate investment techniques that I teach every third Thursday and use those techniques to help you actually acquire a property without having to take on a loan. Or build up, if you want to do wholesaling, build up the cash that you need for a down payment or that you need to buy a home outright. There are so many different ways that you can win with money without these kinds of scams. Okay. Now let me show the other one. This other one is funny too, because this one was the tenant ones. They also offer car approval services. Now y'all know I am not big on car loans. And if you have to go through these kinds of things to get your car loan, it breaks my heart when somebody's like, yeah, I got this new car. I'm only paying 20% interest. And I'm just like, I got this new car loan. I'm only paying 15% interest. 7% interest. Maybe not as bad, but still, And worse, on a 7-year, some people are paying for their cars on a 9-year loan. 9 years. You know that car, unless it's a really good car, you know that car is not going to be worth it in 9 years. Come on now. We got to do better, all right? So somebody comes to you and unless you're a car dealer, this probably doesn't apply. But if somebody comes to you trying to rent your house, make sure you verify that employment. Don't just look at that proof of income and decide you're going to just take it at, call those phone numbers, go to that business. If you can go to that business, because they might have the phone number set up to be their own friends in the backyard, right? But this one, the proof of income car package is only $250. They'll provide you with proof of income, employment verification. They'll walk you through the process. And then there's one where it says they do trade line and a new score package. And I'm just like, this is, for $1,300, rather than go get a new car where you're going to have an $800 or $900 a month payment because your credit's so bad, why don't you just save some money and get you a $5,000 starter car. Save some money and get you, $1,000 beater is probably only going to last you a little ways, but still that's going to be better than putting your $1,300 into one of these, and especially if you got friends who are handy with repairs. I'll tell you what, I love how my Japanese cars have lasted a long time, and I loved how well built my German car was when I had one. But nothing beats an American make for being easy to repair. So, you got to keep that in mind when you're going to buy your next vehicle, but you don't have to fall into these traps and into these scams. Okay. And so again, I hope you've enjoyed that today. If you are somebody who would screen people, and you might find yourself being the recipient of this false information so that you can extend credit or loan or rentals to somebody else who is seeking to rent one of your properties or buy something from you that you're going to own or finance, please, sir, please, ma'am, make sure you do your due diligence, because these kinds of scams are out there. And if you are looking for a credit repair scam, I'm not saying they're all scams, because I gave you an example of one that me and my ex-husband used to do that cost more than just paying our bills, but it wasn't a scam. It was just wasted money, though. It's not that it was a scam. They did what they said they were going to do, but we didn't need to pay them that much to do what we could have done ourselves. And if we had stopped trying to, always try to get new credit, we wouldn't have had so many inquiries in the first place, and we wouldn't have needed them to always come off. So it's a vicious cycle. And a lot of times you can resolve your own credit problems yourselves rather than turning to one of these companies and just lining their pockets. That's not to say that they're all bad, but please watch out for scams. Okay. So let me see if there's any questions real quick. I'm going to check the chat, and I'm going to check my Ask JJC. I'm going to check those. Oh, you know what? I probably shouldn't check that because we're doing Ladies of Wealth now. Okay. Ladies of Wealth. Let me go to that one. You know what? I'm just going to leave it at that because my fat fingers are not typing very well. I'm going to leave it at that. And we're going to go. I do want to tell one more story on the debt, because I feel like somebody is really on the verge of paying for bankruptcy, or they're paying for credit repair, or they're paying for some esoteric product that's supposed to be like an easy button to get them out of their debt. There's no easy button to get you out of your debt. And if there's anybody that's promising you an easy button, you can press that button right now and it's going to seem easy and feel easy in the moment, but it will come back to bite you. You just have to talk to several bankruptcy survivors or foreclosure survivors to realize that all that glitters is not gold. And the second chance that you're promised usually isn't. It broke my heart one time. And they haven't recovered from this. And it's been almost 10 years. It's been 8 years now. It broke my heart one time when someone I knew had a really good business. And I don't know what went wrong in their business. Normally it kills me. I hate that I have this about me. It's like a superpower. It's like a reverse superpower. Like, I can usually tell when a business is going to fail. And I hate that because I usually try to talk to the managers, or I used to try to talk to the managers, and they invariably wouldn't want my opinion or my help or anything. And so then I just, nowadays I don't. I might mention a little bit and see if they might be interested in consulting with me, and especially where I live now. So, hey, if you're in Stephenville, Texas, or anywhere in the greater DFW Metroplex and you need a business consult, guess what? I'm relatively new to Texas and I need testimonials. So if you'll give me a testimonial, I'll give you a 2-hour consult, and we'll definitely come up with a way that you can improve your business. So that's a win-win, right? But this particular business, I still don't know what went wrong. It could be that they were having marital problems and that issue with energy was translating into the business. I don't know. But the business was a really good business. The value they provided was good. I was one of their customers, and I really hated to see the business go. And they had about $180,000 worth of business debt. And they came to me asking, how can we get out of having to pay all of this? Now, I get it. That's how we all feel about things, right? Like we want to try to erase that past. We kind of think that creditors should be like the Lord. When we give our life to the Lord, we ask him for forgiveness. He casts our sins far away as the east is from the west, right? And he just doesn't remember them anymore. There's interpretations. I don't know if the scripture actually says that. We have that conversation some other time. But we generally look at God as not holding it against us, because when he sees us, he sees his son Jesus, and we have received grace, and we have been sanctified and justified and set apart and all the good things, not because of anything we did. And so it's really easy for us to think that we should go to our creditors and they should be able to do the same for us. But that's not how that works. And so, when people come to me and the first question out of their mouth is, how can I get out of having to pay all this? Then I already know we're going downhill fast. And I do my best to salvage it, because I don't ever like to turn away a client. But if I have to, I will. And it always broke my heart because they refused to listen to the plan that I laid out. And I laid out the same pro rata plan for their business as I would lay out for you, and that I also used when I was $800,000 in debt. And I was like, if you follow this plan to the T, you will be able to get out of all of this debt, and you will not have to go get sued, and you won't have to file bankruptcy. And I asked them, I said, well, how much is it going to cost you to file bankruptcy? $2,500. Okay, well, let's take that $2,500 that you were going to pay the lawyer. Let's put that aside in a savings account to handle the emergencies of life over the next year. And let's put you on a pro rata plan for all the other stuff. Oh, well, that's going to cost us too much to pay all that off. Well, how much did the lawyer say you're going to have to pay? Well, out of the $180,000 of debt they had, the lawyer said they were going to end up having to pay about 60 of it. And I was like, well, you're in luck, because with my plan, you shouldn't have to pay any more than 60, if that, because what's going to happen is every month you send those creditors what you can send them. You send them the pro rata letter explaining your business, and then one after another, they will eventually drop away, and you aren't going to have to pay all of that $180,000 back. And I thought it was brilliant. I've never had anybody who did a pro rata plan the way that I teach you to do it that's gotten sued, except for one guy who didn't do it the way I teach him to do it. Because what a lot of people like to do is they don't want to put in the letter, if I will pay you back. They don't want to put that in there because they don't want to pay them back. And this guy ended up getting sued because he didn't put that in there. And then he also didn't put his budget in there. So for those of you who don't know what a pro rata plan is, let me just explain that. Well, let me finish telling the story and then I'll explain that. And so, yeah, I felt really bad because I really genuinely liked this couple, and I actually liked this business, and doing it the way that I suggested not only would give them avenues to be able to work through it without filing a bankruptcy, but it would also help build strong relationships with the vendors who are now not getting paid. And so if the person ever wanted to, if the couple ever wanted to go back and reopen their business, instead of just take the money and run, or instead of just file bankruptcy, you get nothing. Now they still have a rapport and a relationship with the very vendors that they would need to start all over again. But instead they were like, nope, that sounds like too much work and it's too embarrassing, and I don't want to have to write those letters, and I don't want to have to admit that this happened, so we're going to file bankruptcy. Tell me what kind of sense that makes. Tell me what kind of sense that makes. And I feel so bad for them because from time to time I look them up and they're not doing well. I know, I shouldn't do that, but I sometimes stalk my former clients and the ones that didn't become clients, just to see how they were doing. Well, this one I really cared about because their business benefited me. It helped me recover my health, and I really wanted to see them succeed. So I'm not a stalker or anything, but I've been told I'm a little mental, but that's okay. So it really was a shame to me that they wouldn't just do what I'm showing you to do. And I've had people have been like, well, I don't know. I'm like, just give it 6 months. Give it 6 months. Give it 6 months, and if you still feel like filing bankruptcy, you can file bankruptcy. Trust me, the bankruptcy lawyers will still be there. They will still take your money, and they will still file that bankruptcy for you. But you know what you're going to find out in 6 months of working a pro rata plan? You're going to find out that a lot of those bills are going to fall away, or you're going to find out that a lot of those people that you owe are going to work with you. You're going to find out that not everybody, okay? There are some banks, and there are some furniture stores, and there are some vendors that just do not budge, and they will not work with you. But for the most part, they will. And if you follow a pro rata plan, you will not get sued. Okay? They won't take you to court for the balance if you do it the way I'm teaching you to do it. So since I'm already on the topic, and I think little one fell hard asleep over there, I know he was wanting to come back. But since I'm already on the topic, let me go ahead and explain what a pro rata plan is. A pro rata plan, pro rata means fair share, at least I've been told. At least that's what I've always known it to be. And basically, what you're doing with the pro rata plan is you are making a list of everything that you need to cover. Now, when I cannot pay my bills, I don't need new shoes. Okay. When I can't pay my bills, I don't need to go get my nails done. Okay. When I can't pay my bills, I'll use this as an example because I'm a professional speaker. You would think like, okay, well, I need to get my nails done and do my hair done. But you know what? When I can't pay my bills, instead of $100 to go get my roots touched up, I can go get the $5 can of root cover spray, and we can make that work for a month or two. Okay. So whatever is in our life that can be put on hold when we can't pay our bills, we put it on hold, okay? And we make a commitment that we're not going to spend any money that we don't have. If I don't have it, I don't spend it. And if the Lord didn't give it to me, then he hasn't called me to give it, okay? And so we're going to be very clear about that, okay? And with that, we're going to say, okay, I need $1,000 a month for my mortgage, or if I can move into a smaller place, or if I don't have a big family and we can drop down to, sharing a room with somebody else or something like that. Whatever we have to do to make that work, we'll make it work. But for whatever it costs for our house, whatever it costs for our basic food. I mean, we're not eating bison steaks every Sunday. All right. We're not saying you got to go beans and rice, because if you're like me, you need some protein, and beans inflame your joints. So maybe a little bit of meat. Okay. But not extravagant. Okay. You need your transportation to and from work, and that's going to include gas. Okay. But that might not include, every time we go to the Dallas church, we can take the long way, which is like 3 hours to 3.5 hours, or we can hop on the toll road, which is like 2.5 hours. We love the toll road, 2.5 hours, love it. But you know what? If we can't pay our bills, I'm not spending $40 in tolls to go to the Dallas church. I'm probably going to find a church here, or I'm going to watch online. Okay. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. All the pastors are going to be mad at me now. All right. Not the Dallas church. They understand. That's why I can use them as an example. But you know what I'm saying? Like, we're cutting out everything that's not necessary. I have to get to work. I have to get to childcare. I have to get to church. I still want to I still believe in paying your tithes and your offerings. But when you can't pay your bills, maybe your offerings become offerings of time instead of money. Right. And so we're still paying our tithes, but maybe our offerings become offerings of time in our service, or we are offering things within our house, or we are offering hospitality, or fill in the blank other things that become offerings, rather than money when we don't have money. Okay. But we're taking those basic necessities. We call the four walls. We call the four walls your housing and utilities, your basic food, your basic transportation, and your basic clothing. Because, if you go to work, you can't, some of us, we can't go to work and not have the proper attire. A lot of us, we can go to work however we want to go to work, and we can make things work, right? Like, you only have a week worth of outfits that fit, right? Well, you're just going to have to work them. And maybe you put something over it and style it a different way, but you just work it, right? But we don't need to go into town 3 hours from here and spend the gas and go shopping every week to have a new outfit every day, like many women like to do. Okay, we're just not going to do that right now. So we can cover our four walls, and then everything else gets its fair share. Okay, so if I have medical bills, if I have furniture store bills, if I have Uncle Tommy helped us put the shed together, and we need to pay him back for that, and this, and we have that, and we have this, and we have that. Well, all those other things that aren't part of my four walls to keep us basically living, all those other things are set off to the side. We take care of the four walls, and then whatever's left, we divide that up according to a fair share. Okay, so if you have a car note, if you can sell it and get a smaller car note, or sell it and get a cash car, that's advised. But if you can't, you still got to pay for your car, because you can't get to work or to daycare without a car in many markets. Okay. Or, I used to love how people would tell me, well, you need to stop having that car, and you need to take the metro to work. When I lived in the DC area, and I lived in Brandywine, y'all, first of all, it was going to take me half an hour to get to the Branch Avenue station, the Green Line. And then you get there, you got to pay to park there. Then you got to pay to get into town. Like, it was cheaper and faster just to drive to work and park in the garage, $95 a month instead of like $20 a day. Oh, well, the government will give you a subsidy of like $100 a month to cover. Yeah, but that didn't even cover it. That didn't even cover half of it. Okay. So you have to weigh all the costs, and don't work in DC. Like most of my DC clients, we got to build the parking tickets into their budget, because it's not a matter of will you get a parking ticket. It's a matter of how many you get in this week. Like the DC, I've never seen anything crazier than DC parking tickets. Right. And so, we have to look at what we can cut and what's important, what's not important. And then we need to cover our four walls, and then whatever's left, we divide out. So I feel like it would be easier if I drew it out a little bit. Let's see if I'm kind of low on paper here. I'm going to use this corner of this paper. Okay. And I'm going to make some stuff up, and these numbers are going to be round, and these numbers are going to be fake. Okay. And I know it, and that's frustrating sometimes, because sometimes the numbers aren't real, but I want to make the math easy. Okay. So we're going to say you make $3,500 a month take home. Some of my DC people are like, what? That's how much my daycare costs. I remember those days. $2,600 a month, y'all. I couldn't believe how much I was spending on daycare. I was spending more on daycare than my rent. My rent was $1,800 a month, and my daycare on a 4-week month was $2,200, and on a 5-week month it was $2,250 versus $2,600 on a 4-week versus a 5-week month. Like, ridiculous. I do not miss those days. I miss DC, but I don't miss those days. All right. So let's say your four walls is $2,500. Okay. So again, our four walls is going to be our housing, transportation. Okay. Transportation also includes your gas and your insurance. Your housing also includes your utilities and stuff. Basic food. I got to put that on there because, some of us are a little bougie. And it's funny. I even have a little song now. When I go to the store and we get my bougie tomatoes, I even sing the bougie tomato song. Bougie tomatoes. Yeah. Because I love them. They're so good. They remind me of my grandma's garden the few times I was able to visit her as a kid. Oh my goodness. Basic food, basic clothing. And some financial planners don't include clothing. I feel like we can't ignore that, because if you're going to be doing a pro rata plan that is in for the long haul, and stuff wears out. Okay. We're not the children of Israel wandering for 40 years and our clothes aren't wearing out and our shoes aren't wearing out. But what I do find is the Lord makes a way for you. When you make a commitment to this lifestyle, the Lord makes a way, and it may just well be that your clothes don't wear out. Okay. But we're going to call that. Okay, this is our pro rata example. Okay, so I've drawn it out over here. Okay, so you have left over is $1,000. Okay, so what you have left is $1,000. Left. Wow, spelling in public. Okay, so now if I owe, let's see how we make these round. Okay, if I owe. Let's do furniture. I almost said the name of the worst one. Furniture. Let's say I owe them and I'm going to go, you can finagle it how you want to. Sometimes we do the pro rata based on the total amounts owed. I'm going to just go by the basic monthly payments. Okay. So let's say you have 3 bills. Your furniture is $500 a month. Your, you got a clothing store, Dillard's, Macy's, you know, and that's $300 a month. Okay. Oh, that's not a good example. Whoops. Because I need it to be only $100. All right. Let's do 2,900. Okay. So if you're listening to me as part of the podcast, I do apologize. We're gonna make this just $100 left, because that's what I need it to be, is $100 left. Like, you have $100 left at the end of your money, okay? And then you have a pet that got sick, so you have care credit, and that's $200 a month, okay? And so your total amount owed is $1,000 a month, okay? And so what these end up being, if I was to do a fair share, I got $100 left, but I got $1,000 in bills that I've got to pay. Okay, I can't pay $1,000 of bills worth $100. And what a lot of us want to do is we want to try to save our credit. So we're going to throw everything in our credit and we're going to let other things fall apart. Well, the reality is, if you're in this kind of a situation, your credit is already bad. And so you don't even need to stress about that. Okay. But because I only have $100 left, I'm going to give everybody their fair share. I'm going to write this out next to it. Okay. The furniture fair share of the month's bills that are left over is 50%. Okay, so I'm going to do 50%. Okay, the clothing share is 30%. Okay, the pet credit is 20%. Okay, so if I have $100 left, oh, I didn't give myself enough space. If I have $100 left, then I'm only paying $50 a month to the furniture. Let's see if I can make that bigger. Okay, there we go. I'm only paying $50 to the furniture. I'm paying $30 to the clothing. I'm paying $20 to the care. Okay, maybe I have $200 left a month. Okay, I'm paying $100 to the furniture. I'm paying $60 to the clothing. I'm paying $40 to the care. Okay, maybe I only have $50 a month. Okay, I'm paying $25 to the furniture. I'm paying $15 to the clothing. I'm paying $10 to the pets. Okay, F, C, C. Let me put pets on that, pet care. Okay. All right. I'm going to show you this in a chart. I realize me looking down is probably not the most appetizing thing. Okay. But whatever you have left over, they're getting their percentage of that. Okay. So if I've got $5 left, well, it's kind of hard to do, but it's probably going to end up being a 2-2-1 or a 2-1-1, and then I use the other one to put some money in the gumball machine for me and my kid. You know, I don't know, but you're going. That's all you got. And if you'll do this, you stop digging the hole. But won't they add on fees, and won't they tack on this, and won't they tack on that? Sure, they will. But at least you are not digging your personal debt, your personal your personal life bubble hole deeper. Okay, I don't know how to explain that well, because is the furniture company going to be difficult to work with, and they're not going to let up? Probably not. But you don't have it, so push that off. You got to put food on your table. You got to make sure your kids can get to school and get to daycare. You got to make sure you got a job. If you don't get to your job on time because you don't have any money to put gas in your car, well, then you can't earn more money. You got to earn more money. Okay. And so you push that off. And for the most part, if you do it the way I'm teaching you, you are not going to end up with all these extra fees and stuff, because you are going to actually send them a letter which precludes them from doing so. Let me tell you, there are some vendors that have not wanted to work with this, okay? So I'm not saying this works for everybody, okay? But I'm going to give you the basics of a pro rata plan, okay? And I didn't plan this out, or I probably would have made a chart because that's easier than me speaking it and writing it. But there's key elements you need to have in a pro rata plan. One, you need to explain why you can't pay your bills. You don't have to go into 2 pages of detail, all right? Because the more detail you give, the more they think you're lying. So explain briefly why. Why can't you pay your bills? Lost my job, got sick, husband died, my dad died, hard times, economic change, fill in the blank, whatever it is. You know what's a really good one to tell creditors when you can't pay your bills? I was foolish with money and I'm trying to get my life back together. And you would be amazed at how far that goes with your creditors, okay? You explain briefly why. Why can't you pay your bills? 2, you give them your basic budget. So you show them why you can't pay your bills because you just don't have enough money. You list your creditors and your amounts owed. Okay, why are you doing this? Again, you are painting a picture for this creditor that not only can you not pay them, but you understand where you went wrong and you understand the mountain you have to climb, and you hope that they'll understand too. Okay, 4, you're going to promise to pay them in full one day. This is very important. You got to promise to pay them in full one day. If you don't promise to pay them in full one day, they're going to think you're lying. They're going to think you're taking their bill money that you should be paying them and you're buying a big screen TV for the big game. Or they think that you're going to take the bill money you should be paying them and you're going on your next cruise. Okay? So you want to, now look, don't put this in place and say, I don't have any money. And then you post all these pictures on the internet, you going on to Disney. Okay? And if you do post pictures on Disney, it better be somebody blessed us with this trip. We're trying to get our money together, and we're so thankful somebody blessed us with this trip, okay? Because this is not a strategy to manipulate people into giving you an out for the bills that you legit owe. That's not what I'm suggesting here, okay? You're going to promise to pay them in full one day. And then number 5, you're going to tell them, here is your fair share. And that's the 5 key steps of a pro rata plan. Okay? You're going to explain to them what happened. I was bad with money. I thought because I could make the minimum payments, I was okay. And now the minimum payments have grown so high, I realized I made a mistake. I lost my job and it took me 6 months to find another one. I had a really bad car accident that ended my military career. Okay? Whatever it is that happened, that something happened. But if nothing happened, it's okay to just say, I messed up. And I'm trying to get my life back together, okay? You're going to show them your basic budget, how you cover your 4 walls. And let me tell you, don't you put on there that, this is going to sound bad. This is going to sound harsh. I know you're not going to like me after I say this, but if you are facing these problems, private school is not a must pay. And I have lived in states like Alabama and Louisiana and some parts of Maryland where private school feels like a must pay, because otherwise your kids are not getting a good education. However, that is not considered a must pay in this kind of a situation. Oh, I'm going to lose some people on that one, but I'm telling you, you put your basic budget on there. Okay, you put your basic income so they see what you have coming in and what you have going out. Now, you don't need to get it down to the nth degree. You don't need to know that $5 a month you put aside so you can go to Starbucks every other month. Okay, you don't need them to know that. You need to have the basic categories. Okay, but you need to put it out there, and you need to be honest about it, and it needs to be something that makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, then you need to cut it temporarily. Oh, well, I can't cut my cable. I can't cut my internet. I can't cut my cell phone. You can cut a lot of things. If you can't handle the cut fees, the cancellation fees, put it in vacation mode for 6 months. Can you get away without watching TV on your cable for 6 months? Sure you can. You know why? Because there's all kinds of places you can go for free to watch TV or to use the internet. I wrote 2 books now, actually, sitting outside of Starbucks and Whataburger. I forgot about the first one. The first one wasn't a real published book, so I don't know if it really counts or anything. But I published books that I wrote sitting at Panera Bread or in Starbucks or in Whataburger, or when I didn't have any money to buy a drink that day, sitting in the one parking spot I could sit in where nobody could see that I was sitting there. Yes, you can do it. I promise you can do it. As I got better as I got some more money and I had editor come in and edit some of my next books, one of my editors did the exact same thing. She was going through a rough time and she literally edited my book sitting outside of Starbucks because she couldn't even afford the $1 something to go in and get a tea. It can be done. If you are committed to your financial future, it can be done. All right. So you're going to do your basic, you're going to explain why you can't pay your bills, your basic budget. You're going to list the creditors and how much you owe them. You are going to promise to pay in full. You're not going to have to pay in full, but you are going to promise to pay in full. Most of your creditors are going to drop you off in about 6 to 7 months. They're going to start dropping fees. They're going to start cutting your amount owed in half. They're going to start forgiving parts of the debt. They might even forgive all of the debt. You're not going to have to pay all of it, most likely, but you better promise to pay it all. And if you got one of those that play hardball, you better be prepared to pay it all. Okay? It can be done. Then you're going to say, here's your fair share. You're going to write them a check for their fair share and no more. And then you're going to rinse and repeat every month until you get into a better financial situation, or until they change the amount owed, until they release you from some of the obligations that you might have incurred, or whatever happens to change the finances. You're going to rinse and repeat that until you are out of this mess. And I'm promising you right now, I have not had one creditor. No. Let me say that again. I have not had one client yet who has had to execute this process for more than a year. Haven't had it. Everybody that's walked through this process, usually they're done in about 6 months. What? They paid off all that debt in 6 months? No, what happened in 6 months is the creditor was getting their $5 every month, and they're like, wow, we're never going to get this money. This person really has good intentions. They're doing the best they can, but this is going to take us 20,000 years to get all of our money back. We're going to strike that. That's usually what happens. Again, this is not a tool to manipulate. This is a tool to help you when you're in a really bad situation. And I find that a lot of us won't even take advantage of that opportunity because we're in so much pride and we have so much, how do I want to say it? One reason people don't take advantage of a pro rata plan is pride. They don't want to have to make the phone calls and send the letters every month to basically say they're struggling with money. Okay. I hate to break it to you, but when you can't pay your bills and you're constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul, things are always going to fall through the cracks, and on paper and in your credit, it's going to look like you're struggling with money. There's no way you can get around that. So just own it and say, okay, I messed up and now I'm getting it better. Okay. The other reason a lot of people don't like to execute a pro rata plan is because, quite frankly, they don't want to pay their bills. They don't want to pay the debt. And that's the thing that's really hard for me. Like, I understand when we struggle and we can't do it, but for those of you who heard the story about the couple that decided to file bankruptcy instead of working the pro rata plan, they turned around and bought the wife of the couple turned around and bought designer shoes not long after that because they thought, oh, everything's better now. No, everything wasn't better. It was just the quiet before the storm. And now that's something that's going to haunt them for a very long time. Okay. I hope that's been a blessing to you. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today, unless there's any questions. I want to appreciate those of you who are still on. I know I said a lot of things that people don't like to hear, but if you will do those things, then you will absolutely, absolutely win with money. And so I'm going to go ahead and sign off. That's all I've got for you today. If you wait. Nope. If you are listening on the Ladies of Wealth podcast, again, I hope to see you on our Thursday night classes. Every first Thursday is our question and answer time. Second Thursdays is our 7-figure business building. So next week we'll be talking about another stream of income you can add to your toolkit. Third Thursdays is real estate. Fourth Thursdays is the empowered entrepreneur, how to become the person that attracts into your life what you want out of life. And then our fifth Thursday is Wildcard. Last week we did an interview with H.G. Tudor about why high powered women become ensnared by narcissists. If you have not watched that, watch that, listen to it. Either go out to YouTube at JJ Knows the Way, or you can go out to Ladies of Wealth. And again, if you haven't connected with me on social media, please go out to JJ Knows the Way and connect with me on social media, and I'll connect with you. And that way we can help each other build wealth together. Now, one thing I want to say real quick, the only way that JJ knows the way is because I know the one who is the way. And if you want to know the way, let's talk about him today. Y'all take care, have a good night, and be blessed.